that phrase a little bit, but I like the way you describe it. Doug Weed, well said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it. Well, now to your tax returns and my tax returns. The IRS saying so far individual tax refunds only slightly smaller than last year, about $20 less than last year, but 1.6 million fewer people are getting refunds. So will any of this have an impact on how consumers are spending? To National Taxpayers Union Executive Vice President Brandon Arnold. Brandon, I did my taxes last weekend, and guess what? I'm one of those folks who has to pay money. I don't think I've been getting a refund, I believe, for every year over the past 30 years. And it bothers me, but my accountant sat down with me and said, look, this is what you paid in 2017. This is what you paid in taxes in 2018. You're actually making out better in 2018, even though you have to pay money rather than getting a refund. I think that's where a lot of Americans are finding themselves.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The key here is your overall tax liability relative to last year, not where your refund stands from this year to last year to previous years. Because at the end of the day, that is just a reconciliation between what you are expected to owe and what you are paying throughout the course of the year and what you actually owe when you sit down to do your taxes in April, as many of us do. And sure, there are more people now that are seeing smaller refunds or maybe not even getting a refund at all. But if they go back and compare their tax liability to their 2017 tax liability to their 2018 tax liability, 80–90% of those folks are actually getting a tax reduction, and that's a positive thing.
Well, I've been getting more money every week in my paycheck, but there is that illusion when you get a refund that it's found money, and that illusion very often leads people to spend it rather than save it. I don't know what the exact figures are, but the bottom line is that if fewer people are getting refunds, will the economy get less of a kick on the consumer spending side?
Well, that kick is very overrated. I think if you talk to most economists, that's kind of a flash in the pan in terms of the big picture of the economy. What's more important is using a tax code to incentivize wise decisions like investment, like savings and things like that. And that's what we've seen since this tax reform bill took effect at the beginning of last year. We've seen more investment in the United States economy, and that's why we've seen strong job numbers, strong economic performance. It's the big picture here, not the flash in the pan that may occur if somebody gets a $500 or $1,000 refund check and goes off to Target or Amazon or wherever and spends that money right away. That's good, but it's not really what we're looking for with tax reform.
The biggest picture, of course, was the corporate tax cut. And rather than having, it did stem the tide of those companies that went over to Ireland and other places with small corporate taxes, and companies began to come back. And that's one of the main reasons why we have this extraordinary jobs number that we do now, not just reflected in the overall unemployment rate, which is, what, 3.8%, very low, but in terms of having more jobs than you have people looking for jobs. I mean, that's extraordinary, and that's directly because of the tax cuts, no?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. In terms of growth, in terms of the job numbers that we've seen with nearly 200,000 jobs created in last month alone, a lot of that is attributable to the corporate tax rate reduction that incentivized American companies to invest, to do business here in the United States rather than moving their headquarters or operations overseas. The individual cuts, very, very important, but those are more oriented toward growth, toward fairness and toward treating people in a more equitable fashion that has a less onerous tax code associated with it. The growth is coming primarily from the corporate reductions.
Brandon, I know you're a numbers guy, but I'm going to ask you a political question. A lot of people have said that this administration has not done enough in connecting the dots between the extraordinary job situation and the wages going up finally in a real sense that people can feel, and the tax cuts. Do you think there's any way they can do better on that score?
Well, there's always ways to do better, absolutely. I think there's been so many political distractions here that have absolutely nothing to do with tax policy. It's hard to focus on those. But at the end of the day, I think what people care most about on their day-to-day basis is having safe communities to grow, to raise their families in, having enough money in their pockets to spend money on things that they want. So I think there is a nexus to the day-to-day activities of Americans that is kind of separate from all of the political distractions and however you want to describe what's happening in Washington these days. And that's what politicians, including certainly President Trump, need to be focusing on.
I would describe those distractions in Washington, but then I'd get kicked off of television for the words that I'm thinking of using. But Brandon, great to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Democrats gearing up to take capitalism down, or at least some of them. How the free market is under fire after this.